Hello and welcome to this year's update to the free-to-play farming guide for a Galactic Legend Rush account fix. So, you'll see a lot of stuff is very similar to the last one. However, a few things have changed, as well as a couple characters that I just completely forgot to include. So we're going to be breaking it up into the same tabs as before, but I'm going to go over each one individually so that you don't have to go back and watch the other one. So, starting off, we're still going with the Commander Luke Skywalker CLS team standard. And as you can see, the name of each of these teams has the exact relic level that you need each of the characters to be at minimum. So this could be like requirements for unlocks or events. Basically, that is the bare minimum you will need to take them up. In a couple months, I'm going to be putting out a video for Rise of the Empire recommendations, and those will have different relic requirements just based on that. However, not everybody wants that, so I'm including the separate ones here. So, the Commander Luke Skywalker team, as you can see, I have already finished, and I have an analysis on my channel. The analysis videos weren't performing super well, so I stopped putting them out. If you would like to see them again, just leave comments saying that, and I'll keep doing some of the other teams. But starting off with CLS, just because it's a really good team to have. It gets you through a ton of different stuff. But then from there, we kind of need to know where to go. So if we just look at what we have, we take C-3PO, Chewbacca, and Commander Luke Skywalker. We throw in Rebel Officer Leia Organa and Lando and Captain Han, and that gets you to Jedi Knight Luke. So we throw those on there with a Sana Staros team, because that's really the only way that those characters are good, with Stormtrooper Han. Now you'll notice he says 0, because he's not actually required any relics as of now. So just take him to Gear 13. That should get you through. If you find that you need to build him up more, I'd say try not to go any higher than 5, unless you just spend a ton of money on the game, in which case take him as high as you want. But then after that, build up Wampa. Now Wampa is a standalone team with his Omicron. So if you put that on in Grand Arenas, I enjoy quite a bit just taking Wampa and using it to take down one of the best teams that my opponent has on defense, because it's just very satisfying to know that you're taking out such a difficult team with Wampa. Now obviously the minimum is Relic 3, however if you really enjoy it, I recommend taking it much higher, because then you can just take on more difficult teams. After Wampa, we're moving down to Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. So the last requirement we need is Hermit Yoda. Now he's actually at Relic 5, because he's needed for that for Galactic Legend Luke. So we're just bumping him up the extra 2 relics ahead of time. And you can see we put him on a team with Old Ben, Bastila Shan, and Jedi Knight Revan. However, this team is one of, I think, only 2 or 3 that will end up getting dismantled later on for a better team. But that doesn't happen for a while, so this is just what you should be using those characters for now. But then after that, we've finished Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, so we have to find another direction to go. So if we look up here, you can see Sana Staros, so we're just going to go for Dr. Aphra. So one of the other requirements is Hondo. And Hondo works best on a Dash Rendar team. So throw in IG-11 and Queel and Vandor Chewbacca, and you have a really annoying team. If you put this on offense, you can just clear through so much stuff, because they'll usually just target IG-11 and keep killing him off, and because of Dash Rendar and Vandor Chewbacca, he's just going to keep getting revived. It's really good for taking out stuff like Night Sisters. As long as they don't kill off Vandor or Chewbacca, you're fine. Now, he's not required at Relics. However, if you do want to take him up, he is going to be required at Relic 9 for the last phase of Rise of the Empire, so you don't have to feel bad about taking him up higher. Now after that, we have Dr. Aphra with her last two requirements, BT1 and Trip, also known as 000. And that's where you throw in Darth Vader and IG-88. And basically, what they will do is, because Dr. Aphra has specific callouts to Vader as well as Darkside droids. So IG-88, this is just a good place to put him, because him and Vader are actually going to lead us into our next objective, which is actually going to be the Executor for a capital ship. So what we start with is bounty hunters. So Bosk, Boba Fett, and Dengar are required for Executor. However, you need to have the Razor Crest, and in order to unlock the Razor Crest, you need to have the legendary Beskar armor Mando. So you'll notice we have IG-11 and Queel up there, so we throw in Mando and Greef Karga here, just to get some of those other requirements out of the way, because they're only at 7 stars, but taking them up to Gear 13 should help just breeze through the legendary event. And after that, you get to where I currently am in the guide, and that is Imperial Troopers, because you need Piet for Executor. So in a standard Imperial Trooper team, they're a lot of fun, really good for early game and even mid game, which is why I'm very happy to be building them up finally. Now, I will be taking them up higher eventually, but I'll explain that more in the Rise of the Empire video. After that, you'll see we have Rebel Fighters, and with Rebel Fighters, we start with Mon Mothma as the leader, and Kyle Katarn. And the real reason we're doing this is because of Cara Dune as the last requirement for Beskar Armor Mando. So we throw in Pow and Hoth Rebel Scout. However, last year they released a Conquest character that is supposed to replace him. However, since this is supposed to be easily accessible for everyone, I didn't put him in the starting lineup for the team. However, I do have him down here. So you can just swap him out as soon as you unlock him, but until then, Hoth Rebel Scout is what you would want to put in that place. The last thing is TIE Fighter Pilot, and he works best on the Dark Trooper Moff Gideon team. Now this is one of those ones where you don't really have a good replacement, so hopefully you can get Dark Trooper Moff Gideon quickly, but in the meantime these characters will just kind of be sitting in your roster for a bit. Now, that gets us to Executor, which means we got to find somewhere else to go after that. If we look back, we've got Kyle Katarn and Dash Rendar, so we're just going to go for Starkiller. So, starting here with the Sith trio, as well as Darth Talon and Savage, just as the best place for Darth Talon to go. And obviously 3v3, Darth Talon doesn't even get included. You would usually want to use Traya, Nihilus, and Savage. You would want to throw on some Omicrons for that, but it's a really annoying team to get through on defense. And then from there we can actually just go straight into the Starkiller team with Palpatine, Mara Jade, and then the way Starkiller's kit works is he needs 1 Sith, 1 Jedi, and 1 light side and 1 dark side unaligned Force users. So that's what his team does. And I did get a couple comments last time saying you don't need to build up Plo Koon. He's only good for his ship, and that's just his reinforcement bonus. However, he has since been required at Relic 8 for Galactic Legend Ahsoka, so I'm keeping him on the team. And then, after that, I didn't really know where to put this team, but it came out last year, so we're just going to throw Gungans on the end here. And this is it for the first priority teams. After this, you can kind of jump around in the tabs. But Gungans is kind of the last place where we're going to end things for the first priority. Once you finish this, it's going to take probably around 2 years. If you're free to play, it'll take less time if you're spending money on the game. But once you have all these down, you should be getting consistently just winning in Grand Arena if you play that consistently, which you should, because that's the best place to get crystals. And this is just the best way to get through all that. Alright, so now I'm going to go in the order that I have the tabs, but feel free to jump around in the video to whichever tab you need. Alright, so this tab is just going to go over a few galactic legends that kind of tie in with each other. So, to start, we're actually going to be focusing on Galactic Legend Luke. So, first of all, we want a Wookiee team. And I know that doesn't make much sense, but you'll understand why I'm putting that here in a minute. Now, none of the Wookiees are really required at Relics, except for the vet smugglers. So throw those in there. That'll just help round it out a bit. And plus, it'll give a use to your Clone Wars Chewbacca that I know has been sitting in the back of everyone's roster for years. But then after that, we're moving on to an unaligned Force user team. Now, this is another one of those conquest teams. So it's very easy to just replace Malicos with, like, Scavenger Ray, or just any other unaligned Force user, but he is ultimately the one you want on the team. Then, after that, we have the Jedi Training Ray, because, as you'll notice, we have the Vet Smugglers, and then we have Finn, Scavenger Ray, and BB-8. And that rounds out the requirements for Jedi Training Ray, because she's required at Relic 7 for Galactic Legend Luke. So then after that, we're going for a Saw Gerrera team, and throw in Wedge and Biggs because they are also required, and then Chirrut and Baze, and that's a solid team right there. You could also throw in Luthen in this team, however I feel he fits better with the other team, because you would want to replace either Wedge or Biggs, and they're both required. Then we have Night Sisters. And this one we have here specifically because of Merrin. Because, as you might have noticed, first we're pushing for Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, because he is going to be going on the Galactic Legend Luke team. So Merrin is the last of those requirements. Plus, Night Sisters are just a really nice team to have on defense. Now, this is a team that's not really a team. Honestly, I'd say throw it at the end of your back wall in Grand Arena in 3v3. Akbar and Leia are just required, and Scarif Rebel Pathfinder is really just here for the fact that he's a pilot. Then finally we get to the big one, and this is actually where that dismantled Jedi team from before is going to end up. So you'll see we have Galactic Legend Luke, Jedi Knight Cal, Jedi Knight Luke, Jedi Knight Revan, and Hermit Yoda. That's going to be a solid team that will, if you build it up, it'll be useful in Rise of the Empire. Now, the next thing we're pushing for is actually the Profundity, because the requirements for that tie in very well with Galactic Legend Luke. So, starting with Radis and the Rogue One team, it's a little annoying that K2 isn't required at any relics for any unlocks, but he is required in Rise of the Empire, so you don't have to feel bad about building him up at all. Next up, we have a Phoenix team, and I know this is not the standard composition, but I have reasons for setting it up this way that will make more sense later. So we have Hera and Ezra and Captain Rex. The only thing to change is that Ezra is now required at Relic 5 for Galactic Legend Ahsoka. But otherwise this team is exactly the same as before. And then we have Ewoks, because now you have Profundity, so we gotta go somewhere else. Galactic Legend Leia is another thing that ties in really well with all of the farms so far. So we go for Ewoks, and then droids, just so that Lobot has a place to go. And I feel like this is usually a very forgotten team most of the time. I, as you can see, have put zero effort into trying to make this team happen at all, so. And then this is going to seem like a strange one, but Bounty Hunter Leia is required for Galactic Legend Leia, so just put her in a random Bounty Hunter team. I think these are all required for Jabba, so you could technically use that as a way to go after Jabba. And that's what most people will tell you to do. However, I feel like there's better directions to go, and I'll explain that in a second. But first we have to go over the Galactic Legend Leia team. And you can see this is where Old Ben has ended up. And we're actually stealing R2 from the team up above with Jedi Training Rey. And that's just because he goes really well on this team. And by this point, you finish the first tab, you're all the way down here. You will most likely not be using that team very often. And then Kanan Jarrus is down here as well. So you could easily swap him out for Ezra in the Phoenix team if you wanted to. But the reason I have Ezra there is because the next step is we're actually going to push towards Galactic Legend Ahsoka, because that just overlaps with a lot of the farms that have already been done in this tab. Starting with the zombies. So we have Captain Enoch, Night Trooper, and Death Trooper. However, you'll notice I have them all at Relic 9. And that's because, specifically, they have that event that comes around, and most people will just take them to Relic 7, but if you want to get the most out of them, Relic 9 is where I would try to take them, just so that you can get more Relic 9 materials, and it'll just pay off more in the long run. Then we have a Padme team, because you need both of these Ahsokas, as well as Barriss, and the best place to put them is just on a Padme team. Now, Commander Ahsoka is a Conquest character, however, she is required, so there's not really any way to replace her on this team. Then we have General Skywalker and the 501st. Now, this is just because Rex and General Skywalker are required for Galactic Legend Leia, which, fun fact, means that Fives is now the only 501st member that isn't required at Relics, which is kind of annoying because he's the tank on the team. You'll notice I have mine built up to Relic 5. He was my second ever Relic character on this account. And this was way before I had all of this planned out. And then we get to the end of the tab with Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano. And you can see we have Conquest Ezra, Padawan Sabine, Huyang, and General Syndulla. And they're all basically requirements for the character except for Ezra. So you'll have them built up anyways for the team. This is probably one of the most expensive tabs to go through. But as you'll see with the next tab, it's not going to be the longest one. Alright, so for this tab, our first priority here is actually going to be Galactic Legend Obi-Wan. Now, to start, we have Geos, and that's just because Wat Tambor is required, so we just want to get these built up as fast as possible and as soon as possible. Hopefully, you can find a guild that will help get you him to Wat Tambor quickly, but I know that's not something everyone can pull off. So just build up Geos as early as you can. They are required all at Relic 7 in Rise of the Empire, so if you can't quite beat that mission at just Gear 13, don't worry about taking them up to Relic 7 because they will still be useful to you later on. Next up, we have just a Jedi team with Keller and Beck. And then Grandmaster Yoda, Mace Windu, and Ayla are required. Now, normally, if you really wanted to, you could swap Ayla out for Ki-Adi-Mundi, but he's another one of those characters that's just really difficult to get. So you don't have to put him in here. And then Jedi Knight Anakin, just because he makes this team so much better. And then Grievous, when I built him up for Galactic Legend Obi-Wan, this has become one of the best teams for me because it's such an easy counter to Geonosians that I find on defense. If there's one takeaway you should get from this video, it's that General Grievous will take out Geos. And you can see right here what my team looks like. Now, Droideka is in here, but normally in Grand Arena you would want to use the stab. However, Droideka stays in there if you're doing territory wars because of that Omicron. I'm sure my guild won't be happy, but I don't have that Omicron equipped because I haven't fully built up the team yet. It'll happen someday, I promise. Now, after that, we have just a 3v3 team with Cody, Clone Sergeant, and Captain Rex. Now, he actually does cross over to the Phoenix in the previous tab. However, his Omicron is very specific with 5v5 and 3v3. So in 3v3, this is where you want him to be. Then this is, just like in the first tab, this is another one of those Conquest characters where you just can't replace him. But it gives such a good home for Jango and Wat Tambor, as well as Nute Gunray and Count Dooku, because they're all required at high relics. And he just kind of gives them a home. I know endgame he's not very good, but if you're anywhere below Kyber in Grand Arena, he will still be useful to you. Then you may have noticed, but we've kind of gotten most of the requirements for this now. And Bo-Katan is required for Galactic Legend Obi-Wan, so I figured let's just put the full Bo-Katan Mandalore team on here, just to give her a place to go. It's kind of a big push, and you'll notice this tab is definitely the longest because there's so much build-up required for Galactic Legend Obi-Wan. But you'll see that really pays off in a second here. So after that, we get just random bounty hunters. Cad Bane is a character that I forgot to include in the last video, and I apologize to him. I don't use him, except for his ship, which is, it's nice to have him at Relic 5 for that. But otherwise, you're not really going to be using him. This is just a team of bounty hunters that are all required for something. This is where you would want him to go. And then we're still not at Galactic Legend Obi-Wan because we have Queen Amidala. This has helped sort some things out in this tab because we can put Qui-Gon and Shaak Ti here. Now, 3v3, you're just going to use the first three there. And Master Qui-Gon and Padawan Obi-Wan, they are required at Relic 9 for the event. Most people will just take them to Relic 7. And I said this in the previous tab, but taking them to Relic 9 will pay off in the long run. So if you have the materials laying around, take them up all the way. Now we finally get to Galactic Legend Obi-Wan, where we have the last bit of requirements here. And this is probably the most expensive team so far, because we have Relic 7 for the Galactic Legend, but then 2 Relic 8s and 2 Relic 9s, which is a lot. But that just helps make this team so much better. You don't have to feel bad about building any of these characters up. Now, moving on, we finally made it there, so now we're going to push for Lord Vader, because if we just look up here, we have some bounty hunter overlap, as well as some separatists overlap, and it just made the most sense to go in that direction. So we have Night Sisters, and I know they're not required, but you need Asajj to get General Skywalker, and this is just a place to put her. That's why we had Droideka up above as well. So we will need to build up all of those droids, as well as Asajj, who is finally required at Relic 5, so you don't need to feel bad about gearing her up now. But then that'll take us straight into General Skywalker. As I said in the previous tab, 5s is the only one that's not required at Relics, but I wouldn't feel bad taking him up, just because the team is really good, and he's the tank once Skywalker goes down. So then we have the Bad Batch. Now, the new team is already starting to come out, and I still really enjoy this older team. I get so much use out of them. Like, I'll be in Grand Arena, and there'll be a team that I'm just stuck behind, and I don't know what to do, and then I'll remember that I have Bad Batch, and I'll just pull them out, and it'll help me clear through it, because it's just so much fun to watch how many positive effects they get. Then we're going for Tuskens. Now, there's only 2 of them that are required at Relics, but the team itself, perfect, just throw it on defense and forget about it team. Doesn't require too much investment in terms of Relics, so it's just a nice backup team to throw on defense, or just if you need something else to clear through a defense of your opponent, this is what you should use. Now we get to Galactic Legend Lord Vader. Now this is probably not the standard team you would see. However, in 3v3, you're most likely going to end up throwing Piet or Thrawn on this team and taking out the Mandalorians and Maul. I just put them on there because it's a fun team, and this is really the only way I could include them as requirements for something. But they're not required at Relics or anything, so. Now, this is where all of that build-up before pays off, because now that we've got Lord Vader, we go down here, and we build up the Mob Enforcer and the Gamorrean Guard. There is just no good team to put them on. I tried my very best. They just don't fit. But after we build them up, the turnaround from Lord Vader to Jabba the Hutt is just Jawas. And once you get to this point, you can start saving Grievous for better teams, because Jawas are also a really good counter to Geonosians. So you build them up, you build up Jawas, which is barely any time at all, and then you're ready for Jabba. The turnaround is, it's not even 2 full teams here. And then you go straight into Jabba. So that's why I think this is really, I know it's a lot of build up in the beginning, but it all pays off in the end. Alright, so now we're going to go on to the next tab. Alright, so for this tab, it's a bit of a shorter one, but we have 2 main focuses. The reason it's so short is because they don't really overlap with anything. That's going to be the first 2 Galactic Legends that came out, Kylo and Rey. So starting with a standard Phasma team, you'll see this all the time in Territory Wars. However, with the TIE Pilot Omicron, you can also use this in Grand Arena. Usually you want to just use this as a defensive team, but if you have enough defensive teams, you can throw this on offense. Just use to clear out an undergeared team or something. And then we have unaligned Force users. You'll notice this lineup is slightly different to the one that was featured a couple tabs ago, but that's just because it works best in this configuration for what we're trying to accomplish here. We still have the problem of the Conquest character. Again, feel free to just throw another unaligned Force user in here until you can get Malicos. And the Wookiees are back as well, because we still need to build up the vet smugglers. And then we get straight into Galactic Legend Kylo. Now the nice thing is, you build up all the characters you could possibly want to put on his team in this. And I know that there is a Conquest lifter for him coming out soon. However, I don't know how that's going to perform or who it's going to replace on the team, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Then we go into a Zori team, because this is just a lot of fun, and it's probably one of the better teams you'll get out of the Rey farm. So just get it done first so you can enjoy it longer. Because then we have this monstrosity of a team. I wouldn't expect to do anything good with this team. You really just, their requirements, and they're good as pilots, and that's about it. But then, this is another quick turnaround right into Rey. Now, Rey has a Conquest lifter, so if you don't quite have that yet, feel free to dismantle the team above and put Holdo in there. But otherwise, this is the lineup I would go with. And I know this is quite the short tab, so we're just going to go into the next one. Alright, so this is the last tab that we're going to look at today. So this is just going to be pushing for mostly Sith stuff. Basically any farms that are left over that don't really have anywhere that they fit in quite yet. So starting off with Sith Eternal Emperor, we've got Darth Bane with all these other characters. Usually you'll just want to put one of them in there, but this is the only real place I could find to put them for now. And then same goes with Thrawn. Krennic just does not have a place to go. Tarkin does not have a place to go. And unless you want to build up Lord Vader, Royal Guard also does not have a place to go. So just throw them under Thrawn lead. It'll do some good. If you jump straight to this tab, it's going to be useful early game, but will end up getting dismantled fairly quickly. And then we've got a Padme team because of Jedi Knight Anakin. And I know those are some scary high relics compared to some of the other teams here, but it's probably one of the better teams to come out so far in this tab. So it'll be doing some good work for you once you manage to get through all of it. And then, yeah, we're pulling Bane away immediately to throw him with Sith Eternal Emperor. But let's face it, if you start with any other tab, you don't need to worry about not being able to use any of those characters. They will be useful for something else at some point. Then after that, we're actually going to push for Leviathan. So we have the droid team because of HK being required, as well as Sortie. And then we have Malgus with the Darth Revan team. This one has a decent amount of build up to it because you have to get Darth Revan, and you should already have Jedi Knight Revan from the first tab. And then from there you get Malak, and then you have to get Malgus through Conquest. So it's not exactly an easy journey, but if you start it ahead of time, you should be able to be ready for it a bit faster. And then these two don't really have anywhere to go. They're just good as pilots, but they're still good as pilots, and they are required. Now after that, we get to one of the most interesting farms to try to plan out for this. So we have to build up all of the original Inquisitors, and then we have to build them all up with Grand Inquisitor. And the first one to get kicked out is actually Ninth Sister. She is another character that you can swap back into the Lord Vader team if you don't want to use the Mandalorians. But then the next person to get the boot is actually Second Sister, because we have to throw in Reva. Now, As you'll see, I have 44 shards for Reva, and I don't even have my Inquisitors built up. I'm probably going to unlock her without building up my Inquisitors, because it's at the basically very end of the last tab I did. I don't have them as a high priority at all. Most people, if you're in a guild that's running Rise of the Empire, you will be in this same situation. However, if you like Inquisitors, build them up. You can help just get other people to Reva faster. Then we have Iden, because she didn't really fit anywhere, believe it or not, but it's a really good team. And with this, that'll basically put you at all of the Imperials built up, and that's always a good thing to have. But then we get into some new additions this time around. We have the secondary Night Sister team, as well as Baylan Skoll. Now you'll notice Hondo has made an appearance here, and that's because he works really well on this team. And I was greatly disappointed to see that, because it totally dismantles everything I have in my first tab. So, he's at the very end of the last tab, because by this point, you should be ready to just go into the Rise of the Empire teams anyways. And you can use this for the Hondo mission, and you can start using Dash Rendar with the prepared crew, because they are not fun to use. But I'll go over that a bit more when I make that video. In the meantime, that is the entire list. I know the video is a lot shorter this time than it was last time, but that's just because I'm kind of going through this a bit quicker. Not that many people stuck through the whole video last time, so just trying to make it a bit easier for people to get through this time and jump around to what they need to find. But anyways, I will be slowly updating this throughout the year as more additions come. If things keep up the way they're going, I might need to completely rework this whole first tab. However, you should be able to get at least halfway through this by the time the next video comes out, which will be January of 2026, which is insane to think about. So, I'll see you next week with another video coming out, going back to the Minecraft realm. For those of you who just clicked on this for the Galaxy of Heroes, feel free to check that out. If you're not interested, that's fine too. The next Galaxy of Heroes video will be coming out in a couple months. I don't exactly know when. It'll just depend on my schedule around then. But just keep an eye out for that. And yeah, catch you in the next one.